Okay, thank you, Kushlani. So the agenda for this webinar will be that I will be explaining about the case study. We've done some cool stuff for the customer, and I will present you with what we've done and how we did it with WSO2 ESB and WSO2 BAM. We will be also going through a live demo where I will show how we use the ESB and how we use the BAM together to monitor a couple of services which support the student registration process. So the case study is we've done this for a big university in the Netherlands. One of their business processes is that they have students which apply for studies. Those students are approved to follow their studies, or they're not approved to follow the studies. But as soon as they apply for a study, a student registration message comes into the systems of this university, and this student registration needs to be delivered to multiple systems which need something to do with those data. And it's also important that administrators have insight within failed and succeeded student registrations. And it's a very complex environment, so it's very important to have insight in all the messages that are delivered and what messages are not delivered. So the student registration process is something that we did particular for this customer. As I said before, a student applies for a study, the student is approved to follow the study, and after approval, the student needs to be registered in multiple systems. And the systems you can think of are like base administration systems where like basic information is stored, like date of birth, place of birth, all these details of the student. But students also need access to, like for example, electronic learning environments. To set up a flexible environment, this process needs to be able to be extended so that students can be registered in multiple other systems that maybe are there in the future. So it's important to loosely couple all the steps needed within the student registration process so we can extend this process with any other systems in the future. So conclusion, we need an architecture where student information can be derived from the student information system, and as soon as a student registration comes in, then the student message needs to be delivered to multiple systems, which can be extended later on. Well, to support the student registration process, we've come up with the event-driven architecture. And within this event-driven architecture, we've created multiple reusable messages and components. And we've done this to decouple systems from each other and to deliver messages reliable. Since we want a flexible environment, it's important for the customer that none of the existing components need to be added because of other components being added to the architecture. So to support this event-driven architecture, we've introduced the following components. We're using the WSO2 Enterprise Service Bus as a message producer. So as soon as the student information system creates a message, it will be delivered to the producer, which is hosted by the WSO2 Enterprise Service Bus. And as soon as the message comes in, the producer will send the message to the topic. The topic is hosted by the WSO2 message broker, and the topic is responsible for storing the message in a persistent store, and from the topic, consumers of the student messages can be picked up. So we have multiple consumers, A, B, and C, which are actually receiving the student messages and then delivering the student messages to the systems that need to do something with the student messages. We are using this approach for the creation, updating, deletion, everything that has something to do with students. But in the future, we're planning to also do this with courses and enrollments. So for example, student registrations are now coming in through a topic. In the future, we expect that new courses which a student can apply for will also be sent to the other systems based on the same concept. The consumers which are hosted on the enterprise service bus pick up the message from the topic, and they will use, like for example, a web service which is hosted by the actual system that that supports the student in its day-to-day routine on when he's studying. So the consumer will call the web service, and as soon as the system replies with an OK, the consumer will be done. Next to the enterprise service bus as a consumer, we're also using AMQP and JMS clients, which are also receiving the student messages and storing those specific student informations in their backend systems. So we thought, okay, we now have a flexible environment with multiple consumers. It's possible to add multiple producers of messages. We can easily add systems without changing one. The messages are reliable because we send them to a topic, and from that topic messages can be picked up and delivered to the actual systems. We've made the topics durable, which means that as soon as a consumer loses the connection to the topic will keep track of the consumers. So as soon as the consumer is up again, the topic will say to the consumer, you missed these messages, and the consumer will pick up those messages as well. So we've done loosely coupling, and we enabled reliable messaging for this particular customer. So everybody was happy, except maintenance came up with all these kind of questions. So questions that an administrator has is, okay, we have now this loosely coupled environment, messages are going through, I can easily add consumers, but where did my messages go? How do I know for sure that my messages were picked up by the service consumer? These questions that you see here are just common SOA and EDA questions, because I know for sure that every company faces these difficult questions when an event-driven architecture is used instead of a direct interface between applications. So that's why we had to came up with another solution to monitor all the messages flowing in through the ESB and the message broker. So that's why we've chosen WSO2 BAM for the monitoring of all those messages going through the system. And we're using the BAM to analyze those messages and then present those messages with the help of some custom dashboards. So we're using custom dashboards for this specific customer, but we're also using the default dashboards that come with the product that make it possible to gain insight in what messages are flowing through the entire middleware platform. So what we've done is we plugged in the BAM, we plugged it into the ESB, and we plugged it into the message broker. And we've done that by using, by extending the producers on the enterprise service bus and extending them with BAM profiles, which I'll explain later. And those BAM profiles make it possible to send messages to the business activity monitor as soon as a message comes in into the message producer. So what happens? A student registration ends up in the producer. Before sending the message to the topic, it will send first a message to the business activity monitor before it continues processing to the topic. We're also monitoring the topics. So as soon as a student message comes into the topic, the business activity monitor will pick up that message as well, since it is a consumer of the topic. And of course, we've built in monitoring into the consumers by using BAM streams. And so as soon as a consumer picks up a message from the topic, then it will send that message to the business activity monitor as well. So from here we have end-to-end monitoring. A couple of advantages of the ESB are that messages can be monitored automatically, which Centuria will be talking about as well. But next to that basic monitoring that you already have from within the product, we've also extended the producers and the consumers with extra settings so that we can make use of all the APIs of the BAM to track and trace our custom data that's within the messages. So by custom data, I mean that from the student message, we pick up some elements that are then transferred to the BAM, and then we can report on those elements. Those elements are, for example, student registration IDs, and student names, which I will show in the demo. Okay, so technology being used currently for producers, we are using mainly proxy services and APIs on the ESB, which will send messages to the BAM to track and trace all the messages. We're using the BAM mediator to actually pick up the data from the message that's in the proxy service and send that specific data to the BAM. And to make use of that kind of functionality, we require we require some BAM profiles, and those BAM profiles make the connection between the ESB and the BAM. As I said before, we're also using for incoming messages the BAM data agents to track and trace messages and to monitor all the messages that are coming into the ESB. So also messages that aren't related to student messages are monitored by using the BAM data agents. So again, topic is also monitored by the BAM, and we're using, to monitor the topics within the BAM, we're using the input event adapters, event builders, event formatters, and output event adapters. So which is new with WSO2 BAM 2.4.0. With this kind of functionality, it's possible to read messages from topics, send them to the Cassandra database that's underneath the BAM, and then start analyzing messages from there. We're using the activity ID to correlate on those messages, and the activity ID is, for example, a JMS property on the message. Centuria will explain about activity monitoring later on. So, as I said, consumers can be proxy services on the ESB, but they can also be third-party JMS or AMQP clients, which make use of the WSO2 message program. So what we've done, we have a couple of consumers which find it important to listen on the topic directly, but we want those consumers to be sending their data to the BAM as well. So we're using the BAM REST API and the BAM Thrift client to send that data to the BAM specifically. So we're kind of embedding a small BAM client within those consumers to send the data to the BAM so we can still have our end-to-end monitoring. And as I said before, we're using BAM streams within consumers to report on actual student messages. So again, the consumer can also send to the BAM information like the registration ID of the student, but also the student name. Anything that's available within the message is reportable as long as you're using one of the three BAM clients like the BAM streams, BAM REST API, or BAM Thrift client. So again, as a summary, using the enterprise service bus as a producer, because we're using it as a producer, we can make use of the data agents that are already available on the ESB. We can use the BAM mediator as well to send our custom data to the BAM, and the BAM mediator makes use of BAM profiles, which I'll show in the demo, and I will also show you the BAM streams which we're using. And because we're using WSO2 business activity monitoring, we can make use of the activity monitoring that's already available. So what I'll show later on is how we created a custom dashboard and linked that to activity monitoring, for example. And because we're using the WSO2 activity monitor, we have the Thrift event receiver available. That makes it possible to embed that in our Java applications. And for any other technology, we can also use the REST API of the BAM to monitor our messages. Okay, now Centuria will explain about the technical details on the BAM.
Thank you, Dania. So far you have seen how the WSO2 Business Activity Monitor and WSO2 ESB have solved the student registration process problem. So now we will be going into some details of WSO2 Business Activity Monitor. First of all, I would like to say why WSO2 Business Activity Monitor is special. So this is, first I would like to say, like, this is a fully open source solution available in the market, and we do have three main important functionalities for the monitoring, which is aggregation, analyzing, and presentation. And also WSO2 BAM is there, easily can be deployed in cloud platform also, and it has inbuilt multi-tenancy support, So you might be wondering what is basically multi-tenancy is all about. So multi-tenancy provides you the isolation between the users. So none of your data, execution, and anything is not going to be like messed up with each other. It's totally isolated. So you don't need to have to run separate instances for separate users in order to isolate your resources. You can run the same BAM and get your isolation, and you can run your Hive scripts and deploy your toolbox, etc. Everything in the isolated manner. And also it's very much high performance data capture framework. So you can send your custom events to BAM in a very high speed, and all the events are being captured and put into the Cassandra in a very high speed. And also it can scale horizontally as well as vertically. So basically, what do you mean by horizontal scaling? In the sense, like BAM has three main components as I explained: aggregation, analysis, and presentation. All these three components can be individually scaled. And it also can, for an example, if you wanted to have a lot of processing power, you can only scale the analyzing engine, like adding a lot of Hadoop nodes and etc. Also, WSO2 products have their inbuilt data agent support such that they can be monitored by WSO2 BAM in very, very easy manner. So now we will be seeing what is basically activity monitoring is all about. So moreover, you have seen in the student registration process, all the events are related to one activity. Basically, if one student comes and registers into the system, that entire process is one activity. And there is lot of events generated when it reaches each and every component in the student registration system. So we have to collect all these events first of all to analyze them. So this event collecting part is the first component in the activity monitoring. And all of these events should correlate to one activity ID, which is a unique ID. Then you can find out what is the process and how far this activity has been already processed, and whether it has failed or not. Everything you can get. Then you can correlate these activities based on the activity ID, and then you can visualize that activity also. So this diagram shows you basically how the student registration process happens and how the business activity monitor is being involved. As you can see, once the student registration information has been generated, immediately an activity event is being published, and then after, when it reaches each and every end component, at that stage also the activity event is being published. So each and every component will be generating an event which will be having a unique activity ID to WSO2 BAM. Then we can correlate all these events together based on the activity ID, and we can trace what happened to that event and so forth. So first of all, we will be looking at the aggregation part. So that is basically data agents and BAM receiver will be involving. So data agents are compatible with WSO2 CEP as well as BAM. So Daniel has mentioned the BAM mediator as a data agent. So that is basically whatever sending the events to BAM is known as data agent. It is asynchronous and it is very much high performing BAM sending agent. So Thrift, we are using Thrift as well as REST to send events from data agents to BAM. But Thrift will be giving you more high performance, and REST basically you can moreover, if you are using mobile based application, you can use the REST API to send it for the BAM. So all this information are being gathered now, and next question is where these events are going to go. So these events are going to be saved into the Cassandra database, which is basically a schemaless storage, and it is very high speed writes it has. So all the events are being received and immediately stored into the Cassandra. Then now we have all the data into the Cassandra data store. Now we have to see how are we going to correlate these events and generate our activities. From WSO2 BAM 240 onwards, indexes are being created based on activity ID, so that you don't need to run any analytics and you can directly query the Cassandra and get the information about your activity. But in the sense, if you wanted to do some lot of processing and stuff based on your events and activity, you can use our analyzer engine. The analyzer engine is based on Apache Hadoop and Hive. Hive provides you a SQL interface, which basically you can write your own Hive queries, and it will produce a MapReduce job, and you can submit to the Hadoop cluster to run it. It is highly scalable, and according to the analytics need, you can add on multiple nodes, and you can run your scripts more efficiently. And you can write back here all the analytics summary details. If you want, you can write back to the Cassandra itself, and if you want, you can write to the RDBMS or any other data sources you want. So now we have data in our Cassandra, RDBMS, and everything. So now we wanted to see how are we going to visualizing. So summarizing is the part which you can make some sense out of your data, but until you see that, you won't make the full achievement. So first we have to see how are we going to visualize that. So you can visualize either by a dashboard or by a reporting server. Dashboard is basically in WSO2 BAM, we are using Jaggery framework, so you can develop your own Jaggery application and visualize that. Other than that, we are having the out of the box available Jaggery applications for the activity monitoring and message console and etc. So with that, you can just plug in your data, and you can just see the activities and events or events related to that activity, etc. And you can search for them also. And also we have WSO2 GS gadget portal. So with that, you can plug on your gadget XML and visualize your data. So since all this data you finally is going to RDBMS according to your Hive script you have written, you can plug in your own reporting or dashboard server according to your wish and visualize it in your own. So these are the main components of WSO2 BAM, and from this point onwards, Daniel will be showing a live demo explaining how the student registration process is going to happen.
So thank you, Cintuya. I will now demonstrate how we are using the dashboards and the BAM analyzer and the BAM aggregator to receive all the student registrations coming in, and then showing them on screen. So I'll start off with how the current dashboard looks like. This is just a mock-up of the student dashboards, which we are actually showing live data, but the live data is generated by a mock-up API, which I will demonstrate later on. But what we can see here is that, and this dashboard will actually be used, is that this is how we're showing here all the students that are coming in, and we're showing all the steps in the student registration process. So in this dashboard, one from administration or maintenance can directly see that invalid messages came in and that an error was triggered because of the invalid message. So we can assume that the message wasn't delivered at the actual system. The dashboard itself has been built into Jaggery, and we're using, as Cintuya explained, we're using Hive scripts to gather all the data. And because we're gathering all the data, we have also the ability to link directly to the activity monitoring dashboard, which I'm using here. So if we created a link here with the message ID, and that will link us back to the activity monitoring part, and within the activity monitoring we can see all the steps that the student message went through. So if I click on this one, I can actually see the student message coming in, and all these other steps contain all the other messages that went through the ESB. Okay, so to build up the dashboard we need messages, of course, so I'll now show you how we've built a mock-up API to send those messages. So this is the WSO2 Developer Studio, and within the studio I have created an API, and that API is responsible for receiving the student messages and calling a student stream publisher sequence, which is responsible for actually embedding the BAM mediator and so sending the monitoring data to the BAM. So as you can see here, I'm setting a lot of properties, which I'll explain later, and I'm using a stream, which is the student publisher sequence, which we're using to call the BAM stream, and the BAM stream will eventually be called from the governance registry, which is embedded into the BAM. So a message comes into the student API will call the student stream publisher sequence, and the publisher sequence will then call the student stream. And as I said before, this is for demo purposes, so I'm just using the student stream publisher sequence to send a couple of messages to the BAM with help of the BAM mediator, which can be seen here. So to be able to publish to the BAM, we need the BAM custom profiles, BAM server profiles, which can be found within the ESB console under BAM server profile. So I've created one profile since we're using only one BAM instance at the moment. Here I can give my connection details, which says something about the location of the BAM. And the streams configuration decides on what data has actually been sent to the BAM. So I've shown the properties within the studio which are set by the API, and all those properties are elements from the message that is coming in. So here, for example, I'm setting the stream student ID, which is an element of the student registration message. And because I'm setting all these properties, I am able to send messages to the BAM specifically for student IDs and student names. So this actual data will end up in Cassandra, as Centuria just explained. And now we'll go to my client. So I've created a mock client here, which is Postman, which is just part of my browser. And with the help of this client, I will send a new student message, which will be myself with the ID. And with help of the ID, I should be able to find my student registration record in the dashboard that we created. Okay, so I'll now send the message. Okay, as explained, I expect that the student API has now published a couple of messages to the BAM. For the first release, we are using now a custom analytics script, which is the student stats script. And that script is gathering all the data from the Cassandra database and is sending it to a MySQL database, and the MySQL database will then be used by the Jaggery dashboard that I've showed earlier. So to gather all the student registration information now, I need to execute this script, and then the data will be transferred. Okay, it's already running, so let's give it a minute. I can tell you a bit more about scripts. We're using the scripts, and we've deployed the scripts by using a BAM toolbox. So BAM toolbox consists of a couple of parts. One part is, of course, the stream definition. With help of the stream definitions, the correct column families within the Cassandra database are created automatically. The scripts, which are part of the toolbox, which are shown here, can be used. And the BAM toolbox will contain also a custom Jaggery report, which can be seen here. And with those three components, we are able to monitor our student registrations. Okay, I'm trying to, okay. So the query is running now. So what it will do is, in the background, is that, as Centuria explained, WSO2 is using Apache Hive to send all the data to the MySQL database. And it's using a Hadoop cluster in the background, which is currently embedded within my WSO2 BAM installation. So as soon as this script is finished, then I should be able to see my newly created student within the dashboard. Currently, it isn't there. And as we can see from the dashboard, my newly added student has been added to the dashboard. There's a timestamp within the message, and as I explained earlier, we're using just a mock API to send this data to the BAM. So we are receiving the same error messages. What point is, student registration comes in from the student information system, is sent to the topic. On the topic, there's a consumer. The consumer will eventually handle the message. But the producer and the consumers all contain these monitoring parts, which are described here, and all those monitor parts together make it possible for the administrators to gain insight in what messages are flowing through the systems, what messages are going through the middleware layer, where did they go, what went wrong, etc., etc. So that's it for my demo on the student registration process. Kuslani?
All right, thank you very much, Daniel and Sindhuja. So we are now actually open for the Q&A session. So you can send in any questions that you would like answered by the presenters. And in fact, while you're doing so, I would like to make a very brief introduction to WSO2. Probably could have done that at the start, but better late than never. So Daniel, if you can just, there we are. So I'm sure many of you who's already on this webinar, you're already familiar with WSO2 and the kind of business model that we have and so on and so forth. But I mean, from listening to the presentation and from Sindhuja's explanation about the product, you would know that we have a completely open source product platform, and this open source platform backed by a very strong model of support. We have various levels of support to cater to your business requirements or to the projects at hand. Talking a little bit about our history, we were founded in 2005 by Dr. Sanjeeva Veeravarna and Paul Fremantle, who is CTO and co-founder. And since then, basically, we've been dedicated to building products and solutions that help your businesses become agile and lean. So, I mean, our tagline goes is lean enterprise middleware, and that's what we strive to offer you and to your businesses. And talking a little bit about this entire concept of a connected business, I mean, I'm sure you would have seen it on our website, and you would have seen the term mentioned on webinars, white papers, etc. So basically, what a connected business really is one that is agile and is adaptable enough to respond to changes in the environment, internal changes, and so on and so forth. And there are various components that go into making your business a connected business. So there's the segment of API, there's the segment of data, there's governance, of course, and security, which is a very important part of any business operation. And how we at WSO2 can help you become a connected business really is through our platform. So the components I mentioned that go into building a connected business, we have products to fit each of those components. So if you take the API space, we have the WSO2 API Manager, which is a new product really, launched just last year, but has been very successful. Then if you take the space of data, I mean, organizations rely very heavily on the data that they have. The product discussed in today's webinar, WSO2 BAM, along with WSO2 CEP, helps cater to that component. The component of integration, taken care of by the WSO2 ESB, and so on and so forth. So that is really our vision to help you become a connected business using the product platform of WSO2. So Daniel, maybe you'd like to talk a little bit, I'm sure, about Yenlo as well.
Thank you, Kuslani. I'll talk about Yenlo, of course. We're a global enterprise founded in 2007. We're big in Java, we're big in open source. I think we're the #1 in field of integration solutions and managed services. We are the #1 strategic alliance partner of WSO2. We are very good at maintaining, developing your WSO2 environment. We're delivering WSO2 product support, development, quick starts, training certifications, 24/7 managed services, and we're organizing WSO2 events all over the world, and even webinars like these. Yeah, I'm also working a lot on the job, so I'm helping customers every day with the problems they have together with my colleagues who we make a great team, and I'm sure we can help you with all your WSO2 related questions.
Wonderful, thanks so much for that, Daniel. So I think we can kick off the Q&A session now. We've got a few questions, so I'd like to just give a bit of time for Daniel and Sintuja to coordinate the questions between them, and we'll have your answers ready in just a bit.
Thank you, Kuslani. I'll talk about Yenlo, of course. We're a global enterprise founded in 2007. We're big in Java, we're big in open source. I think we're the #1 in field of integration solutions and managed services. We are the #1 strategic alliance partner of WSO2. We are very good at maintaining, developing your WSO2 environment. We're delivering WSO2 product support, development, quick starts, training certifications, 24/7 managed services, and we're organizing WSO2 events all over the world, and even webinars like these. Yeah, I'm also working a lot on the job, so I'm helping customers every day with the problems they have together with my colleagues who we make a great team, and I'm sure we can help you with all your WSO2 related questions.
Wonderful, thanks so much for that, Daniel. So I think we can kick off the Q&A session now. We've got a few questions, so I'd like to just give a bit of time for Daniel and Sintuja to coordinate the questions between them, and we'll have your answers ready in just a bit. The question #1, if the ESB and BAM stop communication, how are we going to store the events, and what is going to happen for the events which is supposed to be published? Yes, in that sense, what we are going to do is we do have a mechanism to automatically poll and identify whether the BAM is down or not in the BAM mediator side. So that is basically by default the Java API provided by BAM, which is BAM data publisher. Their BAM data agents, like the BAM mediator, is using the data publisher. So within that, we do have a capability to the buffer events, which is a configurable size. So those events will be buffered into the BAM mediator side, and it will be resent once the BAM is available. So we do have that facility, so the events won't be get lost for the sudden failure. But if there is like a very long time, if the BAM is down, then of course you will lose the data, but it is configurable. You can configure. If you put a big value for the buffer size, you can have a lot more data. And there is another question, do you run the scripts on the analytics engine? Yes, of course, we are running on analytics engine. So basically we are handing over the Hive script which was written to the Hive engine, and Hive engine will take care of that and prepare the MapReduce and submit to the Hadoop cluster. So of course this Hive script is running on the analytics engine. So is there any way to run the Hive analytics in a scheduled manner, nearly real time? This is the next question. Yes, we do have. You can specify how long, how frequent you are going to run the Hive script. You can specify that by giving a cron expression. If you go to the BAM main analytics list window, where you can see all the analytics scripts you have. So with that, we do have an option to schedule the script. With that, you can provide the cron expression, which basically may be per minute, per hour, daily, something you would like to run. So with that, you can get a nearly real-time look and feel. So there is another question whether the BAM has the role-based security. Yes, we do. So basically, when we are publishing from BAM to ESB to BAM with the BAM mediator, we have to provide the username and password. So with that, we do have the capability like only these people can publish the events, and when running the Hive scripts also. So only the allowed people will be able to see the option to run the Hive script. So we do have that role-based security for BAM. I think we have a couple of minutes more probably to allocate a few more questions, so you can send them in on chat. So there was another question, basically what is the advantage of using BAM than ESB into the picture? So basically, as explained in this beginning of the webinar by Daniel, we do have to have a way to monitor what happened to the activity and everything, and it should be centrally monitored. So BAM provides you that way, and you will not lose your data at any point. It's a persistent analytics server. So immediately the events will be put into the Cassandra and you will be analyzing. So even if at any time if the BAM, one of the business analytics goes down, you won't lose your actual data. The actual data will be persistent. These things cannot be achieved by ESB. ESB is moreover targeting for the integration framework, where you can integrate your components into your solution architecture. So BAM will provide you the way how to monitor these components and how well are they performing, and what are the steps you might need to take in order to make your system up and running. And so there was another question, basically what is the advantage of using BAM than ESB into the picture? So basically, as explained in this beginning of the webinar by Daniel, we do have to have a way to monitor what happened to the activity and everything, and it should be centrally monitored. So BAM provides you that way, and you will not lose your data at any point. It's a persistent analytics server. So immediately the events will be put into the Cassandra and you will be analyzing. So even if at any time if the BAM, one of the business analytics goes down, you won't lose your actual data. The actual data will be persistent. These things cannot be achieved by ESB. ESB is moreover targeting for the integration framework, where you can integrate your components into your solution architecture. So BAM will provide you the way how to monitor these components and how well are they performing, and what are the steps you might need to take in order to make your system up and running, and etc. So all these things are being handled by BAM. So that is the advantage of using BAM than ESB. So there is one more question which is basically asking whether the BAM dashboards and reports are finally being created with summarized data. Yes, of course. It's based on the summarized data. Like that's what being displayed by the BAM dashboard. So for example, if you take the service statistics toolbox provided by BAM, in that particular sense, all the summarization will be happening in the BAM analytics engine, and after that they'll be putting the results into the RDBMS, maybe MySQL server or H2 database or anything. So according to the configuration, and the dashboards and reports will be generated based on MySQL and whatever the summarized results we are going to insert on. So it is based on the summarized data. Okay, so that concludes the webinar for today. The slides and recording both will be available as I mentioned, and basically the link is the same as the link to the webinar registration page, but of course you don't need to keep it in mind. We will send you a follow-up email towards the end of this week with the link to the slides and recording. And that wraps up a great session. I would like to thank Daniel for joining us in presenting the webinar, and of course to Sindhuja from WSO2 as well. Daniel, thank you very much. Do hope we can have you at future webinar sessions. And thanks to everyone who attended the session. If you have any projects that require WSO2 BAM, basically a data solution such as that will involve the use of WSO2 BAM, you can get in touch with us. You can email us on bizdev@wso2.com, or you can simply fill out a contact us form. And of course, if you're interested in participating in more WSO2 webinars, you can check out all upcoming events on wso2.com/events. So we leave you with a quick glance of our customers from across the globe that we've managed to acquire for the years we've been in operation. And yeah, that wraps up today's session. It's been a great webinar. Thank you very much everyone for attending. Thanks again to Daniel and Sindhuja. Hope to see you all again. Thanks and have a good day. Any projects that require WSO2 BAM, basically a data solution such as that will involve the use of WSO2 BAM, you can get in touch with us. You can email us on bizdev@wso2.com, or you can simply fill out a contact us form. And of course, if you're interested in participating in more WSO2 webinars, you can check out all upcoming events on wso2.com/events. So we leave you with a quick glance of our customers from across the globe that we've managed to acquire for the years we've been in operation. And yeah, that wraps up today's session. It's been a great webinar. Thank you very much everyone for attending. Thanks again to Daniel and Sindhuja. Hope to see you all again. Thanks and have a good day.